Hi, my name is Jack Hawkins and I've been keeping bees for over 30 years now, and I'm going to show you today just a little bit about beekeeping. And the first thing we're going to start with is the typical beehive. We start with a bottom board. This is what the beehive actually sits on. This one's called a vented because there's a screen here and it lets air come up a lot easier than normal. So then what we do is we put our hive body, which is this, and you can see it's pretty deep, and we put 10 frames in it. These are called frames, and you can see this is plastic. Some people like to use just regular wax, but this gives them a pattern on how to draw their cells out. So they will go on these little indentations here and draw their comb straight out, and when they do that, they actually build it up a little bit also, kind of on an angle. And that's so that when they bring the nectar in, which is just like water, it doesn't run out of the hive. So it's important to have your hive level, and we always start with 10 frames. And it's real important to keep these real close together when we're starting out new, because the bees will make comb in spaces where it's too wide, like this one. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to have add what's called a super. This is a medium super. They have one that's a little bit smaller, and it's a shallow super. Now after the bees take this foundation sheet, they build comb on it, and this is what it ends up looking like. And if you could see it, you can see where the cells are actually angled a little bit. Now, when this frame is completely full of honey, and to back up a little bit, the super is where they store their extra honey at. So when this frame is full, how much honey do you think would be in there? And the question is it a little jar? Is it a medium jar? Or is it a big jar? So the answer is it's all three. Each one of these frames will hold this much honey. So it's about 6 pounds per frame. So when this box is completely full of honey, it weighs about 60 pounds of honey. So we finish off with this. It's called an inner cover. We put the inner cover on top of the super, and on top of it goes the top cover. We put this on first because if we don't, the bees will glue this or glue the top cover down to the box to where you wouldn't be able to get the top cover off. This protects the hive from the rain and wind, and so when we get into it, we take it off, take the top cover off and the inner cover off. I tie everything with a string so that the wind doesn't blow it off. And then with my hive tool, I prop open the back and I open it up, and now you can see all the bees up here. This is called the inner cover, and you want this on so they don't glue it to the top, because if you was to do that, not have that on, they would glue this down with propolis so strong that you won't get it off without tearing it up. So usually, if there's a lot of bees up here like there is, we'll pop it. You want to work real slow. Put a little bit of smoke on them. And now we're going to take it off real slow, and we can see the bees in the super. The super is the area where they will put their honey, extra honey, and then sometime we'll also put brood in here also. So the way we get the bees out is, this is called a fume board, and this is a substance that the bees don't like. It's very smelly, so we spray some on here. I'm going to put this right on the top here. Now I can tell already that there's going to be some bees left in here because I can see brood in here. So the bees will protect that brood pretty much at all cost. So even though they're not going to be all gone, most of them will leave. Okay, so we waited about 4 or 5 minutes with the fume board on, and when I remove it, if you look, almost all the bees are gone out of this area here. So then we would pop this up, remove it, take it in, and extract the honey off of it. But I'm not going to do that because I can see brood down through here. This brown on this frame right here is going to be new bees. And over here, new bees. So we don't want to take this super. We'd rather have the bees. So we're going to go ahead and close this hive back up. So you just want, with all these bees on here, you just want to work real slow, and you can see that it doesn't irritate them. And we'll just put them right back down. Put the top back on, and you can see there's even bees up here. Tie my string back on so the wind doesn't blow it off. And we're good to go. Welcome to my honey room. This is some of the equipment that is typically used for beekeepers to extract their honey. This is just a big storage tank. It's stainless steel. If I have lots of honey, then I'm going to put it in here, which I should have this year. This is called an uncapping tank. You'll see here in a few minutes how we uncap the honey. This is a double boiler, so I have filled it with hot water, and the reason for the hot water is the cappings that I'm going to cut off this is just beeswax. So what happens is when I cut it off, it's going to melt the wax, and the honey and the wax will then run down, and through this filter, this will catch any bees that might be left in it, or big chunks of honey, but mostly bees. It'll come out this area here down into the bucket as the same thing. It'll look like honey coming out, but when it gets into the bucket and it starts to cool, the honey is heavier than the wax, so the wax is going to come to the top, and it'll create a nice big block of solid wax. The honey, then I will take that block of wax out after it cools thoroughly, and then I'll be able to take the honey and run it through a filter to get all the extra debris that might be in it out of the honey where we can use it. This is my extractor. This is how the honey will get to be out. It's a big one. It'll hold 18 to 20 frames, and we'll put the frames in a few minutes and show you, and it's just going to spin very fast. The honey will be thrown out to the outside of the tank. It'll flow down the side of the tank and then come out here, and I've got a filter here that will collect the big chunks of wax, and then another filter down here that will collect anything that this filter does not collect. So that by the time it goes into the bucket, it's going to be nice, clean honey. So with that, we're going to get started. This is a hot knife. And I know it looks nasty, but it would look pretty nasty too after nearly 30 years of uncapping honey. The black is just the excess carbon that is burned off the sugar, or the honey. Of course, honey is a type of sugar, so when it burns, it's carbon. So that's what the black is. We're going to let this heat up, the knife, and you can start to see it getting wet already. That's the honey and the carbon that's starting to melt. So here in just a few seconds, we'll be able to start cutting the honey off. This is a capping scratcher. On some of the frames, we're going to find out that the wax is not out far enough for the knife to collect. So we'll use this to scratch the excess honey, or the capping off that the knife can't get to. So we're going to start with this frame, and this is another type of hive tool, and it's nice because it has a little hook on it to where I can reach under and pull up the frame as I need it. So you can see the nice area that's all capped over, and it's very important that it's capped over because honey is just like any other crop. It needs to be at a moisture content that is not too high because it can ferment, and that's what we don't want. Otherwise, if the honey is capped like this, it'll last for years and years and years. It will not spoil. So that's what we want. So what we're going to do, it looks like my hot knife is ready to go. So we take it and we're going to shoot right down the plastic part of the frame. And you can see how it melts the wax cappings. And I don't like to go real deep when I cut my cappings, because I like for most of my honey to get extracted out of the extractor. So we have just a little bit that didn't get uncapped, so I'm going to use my scratcher, especially right here, and we'll scratch that off. Same on this side. On this side, the honey is not built out so much. You can see I'm going right on the edge of the frame. And we have lots of cappings that didn't get cut off. So back to the scratcher. And we need to make sure all this capping is opened up for the cells, because if you don't have all these little cells punctured, that honey will not come out of them. That wax is so strong that it just won't come out. So we put it in our extractor, and when we get this filled, then we're going to fire it up and show you how much honey comes out of it. You can see these little orange specks in here. Some of these cells, that's pollen. The reason that this is dark right through here is that the queen has laid eggs, and it's going to be the same side on this, same thing on this side. And whenever the queen lays eggs, then when they hatch out, they leave this dark. And It doesn't hurt the honey any, the flavor of the honey, but that's how you can tell where the queen has been. She has laid eggs in all this area right here, and there have been baby bees come out of there. So the pollen is used for because that's what the larvae of the bee eats is honey and pollen. And this little critter right here, that's a hive beetle. That's one of the nastiest things that can be in a beehive. That's one of the newer pests that beekeepers have dealt with. Of course, they've been around probably 10 years or so, and they come from a different country. We can thank people for bringing those in that we don't want. They were first discovered in Florida, and in just a matter of a few years they've already made it up here. This honey is from about 5 miles south of Greensburg. And what I like to do is I like to keep each area separate so people know exactly where the honey that they buy comes from. Now, you can see now coming out of the chute there, the honey and wax is starting to melt. And as you can see, it really can't tell the difference between the wax and the honey yet. And once it gets in there, in the bucket, it'll start to get solid as it cools down. And after we're all done, it'll be just one nice big block of beeswax. It's real unusual on this hive. This was in the center of the super. And what the bees do, especially in the later part of summer and fall, is they want to seal every hole up that there is in the beehive. So the inner cover has a hole that's about this long and about this far across. And the propolis, and that's what this is, it's very sticky, it's hard to get off, but it's actually tree sap. The bees will go up and bite a small limb, and the tree heals itself just like we do with blood, except theirs is sap. The bees will collect that sap, bring it back to the hive, and will actually fill every hole and crack that's in that hive. You can even see it here on they sealed the frames down to the box, and that's why it's so hard to get off. But the unusual thing about this, I've never seen it drip down into a frame like this. So this is really pretty unusual. We have our extractor pretty much full of frames. We're ready to take the honey out. We'll turn our extractor on, and it's going to get really noisy. I don't want it to go real fast. This is the adjustment to make it go really fast and really not quite so fast. So I crank this down, and this pulley right here is coming in contact with this, and it's going to start spinning. as we open it up, we see our frame spinning around very fast, just like a washing machine. What it's doing is, if you can look over here on the side, you can actually see the honey being thrown out against the side of the extractor. And as that is thrown out, it's going to come down, and in a matter of just a few minutes, it's going to start coming out down here. So we're going to let this run for, probably 10 minutes or so we get as much honey out as we possibly can. And here it comes already. By the time that we're done with this bucket will be pretty close to being full. See the little bit of debris coming out here? That's little pieces of comb. When we cut off the cappings, that might be pollen. So what will happen, it will come down here on this little screen, and that's going to get stuck on the top side. The nice clean honey is going to go down here and go through that second filter, so it's even cleaner yet. Earlier, I showed you while we was cutting the wax cappings off the honey that I'd have a big disc of beeswax. Well, not only did I have one, I had two. This is pure beeswax, and the color of it is such a nice yellow that it would be a premium beeswax. So that's what we ended up with after we melted it all down. Now, after we harvested it all, we ended up with quite a bit. This bucket is completely full of honey. Now the stuff you see on top is pollen and a little bit of wax that might be in there. The pollen is good because honey, for some people, will help with allergies. So you want that pollen in your honey. As we go back into our honey room, we have another bucket full, and another bucket full, and another bucket full, and the big tank I told you about, it's almost full. One of the neat things about beekeeping is the different types of honey that you get. I have hives in different places in the county, and if you look real close, you can see the different colors of each honey that comes from those hives. I extract honey from each hive separately. So this is from 3 miles east of Greensburg. This is 5 miles south of Greensburg. And this is near St. Paul, where I live. So you can see the different colors of honey that actually come out from the different nectar sources that are in your area. So if you have a beehive, your honey may be even different color than this. Okay. Well, I hope you've enjoyed our visit here at our honey room, and it's been a joy to share this time with you. Thanks for watching.